looking at age 12. The learning outcome is to what extent do dispositional factors impact health-related behavior? And the concept for this study is dispositional factors are characteristics that are internal factors, such as individual behavior, like the individual behaviors that are personality trait and genetics, and certain health-related behaviors can be overeating or undereating or having angry outbursts that come from stress, as well as the behavior of coping with the stress. The stress is a personality trait that is with the changes, such as emotional and physical changes that occur in the individual's life in a certain amount of time. And in stress, there can be high levels of stress of personality, like of people that have the personality of perfectionism, as well as them wanting to have things done a certain way. And if the individual is a perfectionist, they have to have their work. Everything has to be perfect in their opinion, and everything has to go their way. And that's one of the main issues that allows someone to become more stressed, because if things don't go their way, they become stressed and they think that their work isn't going to be perfect, and it can actually negatively affect them. The stress can cause an individual to not behave like themselves or cause them to undereat or overeat based on all the stress that they're undergoing, as well as it is common for people that are under this stress to have these certain behaviors, such as not eating because they're stressed or overeating because they're stressed, so they binge eat. Another personality trait that is associated with this behavior is optimism. And in optimism, an individual finds the positives. An optimistic person finds the positives that are in every situation. Even if something is going bad for them, they always look ahead and they think of the positive things that will come ahead. If an individual is more optimistic, they won't really stress about certain things in their life because they think that everything's gonna be okay and these situations won't bother them in the future. As well as optimistic people tend to have stable levels of cortisol levels, which limit the stress that they have in their body. A behavior that is also associated with the stress is the ability for an individual to cope with the stress. The coping strategies can be effective, such as an individual can find coping in social support, which can be interacting with individuals, or they can think strategically and think of the specific root of the issue and try to fix it. Individuals that that tend to cope more socially, they have a greater chance of relieving their stress rather than people that are not as optimistic and are often narcissistic. They tend to have more of the maladaptive strategies, which is what ends up not really helping with the coping. It actually has negative effects on them. These type of coping strategies can be self-harm, or it can be overeating, which can have the negative effects on the body. So instead of coping with the stress, they can actually create more stress in their life due to these type of coping strategies. And a study that goes with this is Dunkley, which the study was conducted to see the dispositional factors that played a role in stress. And this study were college students, females and males, and this was a correlational study because the participants took part in a questionnaire that the questionnaires determined the dispositional factors and the situational factors that go into stress. And the findings from the answers in the questionnaire was that the people that are perfectionists have a higher tendency to have stressors in their life due to their personality and them wanting everything to be perfect. So the perfectionism is a dispositional factor that causes them to have this stress, that causes them to, from this stress, to overeat or undereat or take certain extents to cope with the stress. A second study would be Segerstorm and Ness, which this is a study that investigated the relationship between optimistic personality as well as the ability to adjust to the stress. And this study was a meta-analysis which took various studies and combined them into one. The study included over 11,000 participants, and the findings were that the individuals who were more optimistic, that had this personality trait, were able to manage stress more effectively than individuals that weren't as optimistic and didn't have these positive coping strategies. The individuals that were not optimistic, again, they use the maladaptive strategies because they want to find a quick way to sort of cope with the stress, but it actually creates more stress because they're not able to properly adjust to the situation, and it adds more stress in their life. The last study is Whitworth and Loftus, which this study was conducted to examine whether the personality traits, such as people being extroverted or neuroticism, would affect their health-related life of an individual. And these participants were individuals that were diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And this study was also correlational because it looked at the questionnaires that the questionnaires ask questions about their personality to kind of understand what type of person they are, as well as the coping strategies that they would partake if they were under stress. It was found that the personality traits such as neuroticism often led to coping strategies that were escape avoidance, which would be a maladaptive type of coping, as well as the individuals that were extroverted had a more healthy impact on themselves and had a better positive coping strategy behavior, such as they would have a higher tendency to have like social relations between other individuals, and this is the way for them to cope with their stress. And it can show how personality plays a role, which is a dispositional factor of personality, plays a prominent role in the way that we cope with these certain behaviors, such as the coping strategies we take, and that if we have more of a negative personality, we tend to have more negative behaviors towards the health-related behaviors versus a positive.